Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Ranking Member DeGette, for holding this hearing today and for bringing forward for consideration these bills. And thank you to all of our witnesses for your testimony. I share the concerns that many of my colleagues have already raised about the Republicans' failure to extend the advanced premium tax credits, failure to lower costs and instead drive them up through these disastrous cuts to Medicaid and others, and failure to conduct oversight of the firings at CDC, the newly appointed ACIP, conflicts of interest, and so much more at our country's health agency. So today is a bright spot in the hope that Congress can do its work rather than cede its authority and its responsibilities to the White House, as it has happened time and again this year. So this hearing is good and it's important, but we can't talk about breakthrough medical devices without also examining the cuts to the research that led to these breakthroughs. Since taking office, President Trump and his administration, as you all know, have worked systematically to dismantle scientific and medical research across the United States. And my friends on the other side of the aisle really haven't said a word about it. But the people I represent have. Many of them work at the Texas Medical Center in Houston, which is the largest medical center in the world and home to some of the greatest minds in medical research and the most advanced and incredible care. The medical center, the Texas Medical Center, employs more than 100,000 people. It has 10 million patient encounters a year and GDP of $25 billion. And I have heard from people and institutions across the TMC and across my district that the impact of these funding cuts that they are having on critical research that's being conducted there and across the country. Already, Baylor College of Medicine has laid off more than 100 employees because of expected reductions in federal funding. UT Health in Houston has also laid off staff and put in place a hiring freeze. And in the last 9 months, we all know the Trump administration's canceled at least $1.8 billion in NIH grants. It's also cutting other funds, as we all know. I could spend 5 minutes talking about that, but instead, Mr. Ezell, I want to ask you, because in your testimony about multi-cancer early detection screening tests, you talk about how China is prioritizing the development of these tests to expand its leadership in biotech while we are defunding it. And as you've probably seen, there's been a huge drop in applications for postdoctoral positions in the United States from Europe and China. The scientists that did study here are now leaving to take new positions that are being created in other countries. In a poll of more than 1,200 scientists, 3/4 of the respondents said that they are considering leaving the United States because of the Trump administration's actions around research. So do you think that cuts to research in the United States and the brain drain that it's causing helps or hurts our ability to create and bring new breakthrough devices to the market?
Well, the cuts to NIH funding will certainly compromise America's ability to be a leader in the biopharmaceutical field in the future. You know, we're already seeing countries like France put in place specific programs and Singapore as well, to attract US researchers who have their funding cut here in the United States. So countries putting in place strategies to take advantage of this opportunity now. With regard to MSED, China has made it a national priority, actually. They've already implemented the coverage pathways we talked about. And in fact, China is reimbursing their companies for the research cost if they are able to show it leads to effective MSED screening test. And more broadly, one of the great potentials, as we talked about, is MSED's ability to help us identify rare cancers, right? Ones that affect 200,000 people or less, 7,000 rare cancers we know of, less than 95% have a treatment. It's gonna be horrible if we have effective MSED screening that shows us these cancers in the population, but then if we don't fund the research for the therapeutics to give no solution to them, then the US government is not doing right by the American citizen. And I think Congress has an ability to address that, both by restoring, the funding cuts that have been proposed for NIH and NSF, but also passing legislation we're talking about here today.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Ezell. And I agree with you, and I want you to know, and for everyone to know, that there are many of us over here who are working to restore those cuts, to cancel the cuts, to make sure that we are prioritizing the health and safety of the American people and investing in this research and in these kinds of advances.
I might just add, if I might,
sure.
that R&D funding is the seed corn of America's future. It's a seed corn of the technologies and the industries and the jobs of tomorrow. And this generation has a responsibility to future generations to make those investments, just like generations did before. There needs to be an intergenerational compact in this Congress and this administration to understand that these investments are critical for our economic and national security future.
Well, thank you so much. I could not have said it as better or as succinctly. I do have another question for you that I will submit for the record on the topic of cuts. Hugely important. Thank you. And thanks to all of you for your work. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll yield back.